Sylvester Stallone is the most improbable of movie stars. He's shortish, speaks in a flat growl, and as for acting, well, you get a curled lip, a cocked eyebrow, and that's about it. Yet there's something irresistible about Sylvester Stallone, something that makes people warm to him, even when, as in most of his movies, he's littering the screen with dead bodies. Perhaps it's because, like his alter ego, his climb to the top has been rocky. Right from the first blow, Sylvester Stallone has always put a lot of himself into his movies. He was a complete unknown when he made Rocky, a movie about a young man not unlike himself, from the tough side of town, a man with big ambitions and a chip on his shoulder.
You know how I got started fighting? Oh, man. It was never too smart. He says to me, you weren't born much of a brain, you know, so you better start using your body, right? So I become a fighter.
Oh. The advice that your character in Rocky received from his dad was advice that you got from your dad in real life.
Yes, you don't have much brain, so you better start using your body.
That's a pretty dreadful thing to say.
It is dreadful, and I would try to, I would hearken parents to be very careful what they program their child with. Because I was a rather rambunctious child and I had an attention span deficit. In other words, I needed a lot of stimulus. And that stimulus was not forthcoming. You would look as though you were just hyperkinetic and random, undirected energies.
But despite the intellectual life that you had, you did take your dad's advice, didn't you?
Oh, I did, very much so. And
he was right.
Well, you know, in a way, perhaps that ill-advised advice served its purpose, because if I hadn't become involved in bodybuilding and so on and so forth, I wouldn't have been prepared for Rocky. And let's face it, that was my calling card into the business. I came in basically on a physical level.
Rocky won an Academy Award for Best Picture in 1976. Stallone had arrived, and now came the long rocky road. Rockies 2, 3, 4, and 5. And along the way, he taught himself to act.
Excuse me, Dad. What's the problem?
I can't. I can't stop my hands from shaking. I started out kind of like imitating. I literally would sit in front of a television set and have a mirror next to it. And I would parrot lines. If I was watching a soap opera, I'd hear a line, I love you, Judy. And I said, I love you, Judy. And I would say, see if I could do it better, or if it sounded worse. And after a while, I started to develop a rhythm. And then eventually out of that comes a style.
And out of that came a man called John Rambo, an apparently quiet, harmless bloke whom the small-town sheriff should never have bullied.
Let me see some ID. All right, you're under arrest. You hear me? Now put your hands on the car.
There were 3 Rambo movies, and the hero's name forced its way into the dictionary.
Well, what do you know about that? Old Harry here's a soldier. Rambo. John Jay?
What other action hero has had the chance to make such a useful addition to the English language? Of course, the script did bring with it the dangers of eternal typecasting.
It is absolutely astounding. When I read this, First Blood, I said, this is the end of my career. Because this movie had been passed on, you name it, every star passed on it, had been around for 8 or 9 years. De Niro had passed, Paul Newman had passed, Robert Redford had passed, because it was like a career killer. And I thought, if I could just change a little bit of this character, maybe we could catch a mood. And interesting enough, that character of Rambo tied into, I guess, the way, some parts of me, the way I am, because I seem to carry that feeling in most of the good performances I do, of this isolation, of wanting to get back into mainstream. It's a redemption theme.
Let's put it this way, I now put nothing past you.
Amazingly, in the midst of success, he decided to change that theme, to make different kinds of movies, to break the mold. But the comedy Rhinestone never glittered. It was embarrassing.
I just want to play a couple of chords on this organ I have at home. Hey, I'll tell you what. Why don't you come to my house and you can teach me a new song?
Go to your house, huh? I suppose that's so you can show me your organ, right?
They hired the director of Porky's to come on, and he made it this like slapstick comedy, and I was dead. And I've had to live with this rhinestone thing, or slimestone, or whatever you want to call it, my whole life.
No one must suffer as much as you guys when it's not quite right, because you're up there 70 foot high, aren't you?
You better believe it. I know when actors say, oh, it doesn't bother me, it's just a gig. They go home and they throw up and they die 1,000 deaths. I've always said that actor dies twice, and the second time is easy. The professional failures is like hell on earth.
Seeming to parallel his failed films were a succession of failed romances, 2 marriages, and a string of glamorous girlfriends. Stallone is introspective enough to make the obvious connection.
So this very strange, unusual pattern began that I have not seen in anyone else's career, of these incredible peaks and valleys and peaks and valleys. And
this must have taken its toll. I mean, one would worry about it.
It did, and I think that it was also reflected probably in the turmoil in my private life because of the upheavals in the professional life. There was this unrest. Yeah, it's very much.
So that stuff is constantly in your head.
It has to affect you. I mean, I don't think people.
I mean, you always look pretty cool, no matter what they're saying about you.
No, the looks are deceiving. I mean, you try to put on the happy face because you have to put on your so-called public persona.
Back with his former girlfriend, model Jennifer Flavin, after a split that sold 1 billion tabloids, Sly tells us all's well with his career and his love life.
What brought you back together again?
Intelligence.
At the world premiere of his latest film, Assassins, the brooding hero almost looks happy.
My private life is finally in very good working order, and I thought now I have to get my professional life. And it was quite a while that not many very good directors wanted to work with me because of the films I had done in the 80s, which were pretty much, formula-type films. They said, I don't think Stallone can act, or maybe he can act, but he doesn't do the kind of performance we want.
Never gave yourself a chance to act in a lot of those.
Yes, exactly.
Can I help you?
I'm just looking for someone.
What's the name? I can check the plot map for you.
He's not dead yet.
The critics are calling Assassins the best Stallone movie yet. It's even been suggested there's some good acting here.
He'll shoot you before you go into the bank.
No. He'll wait for the prime shot.
At almost 50 years of age, the old Stallone has reinvented his younger persona, but this time with maturity and class. He plays a hitman with a midlife crisis.
Don't play with me now. I am like the old bull who has seen it all and realized you have to have some kind of system, a code, an ethic, even in the business of death.
Now what?
Stallone faces a manic young professional killer played by the up-and-coming Antonio Banderas, whom Hollywood is touting as Stallone's successor. It's interesting casting. Again, looking for life and art, of course, a lot of people are wondering if this isn't the young guy coming up to knock off the old guy.
It probably is.
Do you feel him barking on your heels?
I hear, remember a few years ago, Burt Reynolds, when he was at the top of his game, says, at night I try to go to sleep, but I keep hearing Stallone's footsteps. And I said, well, there's the pitter-patter of Antonio.
These movies, do you ever count the bodies? Do people get hurt?
They do get hurt. This time it was Antonio's turn to get hurt. He took a severe whipping. It was like, I said, Antonio, I've done this now for like 30 movies. It's your turn.
He has the qualities of almost of an evil cartoon character, doesn't he?
Yes.
And the violence is almost that way too. I mean, you can't kill him. He falls through 4 or 5 stories of building.
Like the road runner,
And even when you put the last bullet in him, I still expect him to get up straight after.
It's Teflon, this tough kid.
What is it about violence in America that makes it so marketable on film? And are you part of the problem or part of the solution?
No, it's obvious. It's reflective, unfortunately, of a failed political system. And I've had these wars with politicians. They keep saying, we should censor this and be a little bit more responsible in Hollywood. I said, Hollywood is merely a mirror of what's out on the street.
And a lot of your heroes seem to fulfill some frustration in Americans.
Yes.
Americans see violence, they feel impotent in the face of this violence. You have bad good guys and good bad guys who Who clean up, who do the job that the cops can't do.
Well, yes, it's like a vigilante mentality. I think because it gets right down to it. I don't know how many times people just say, you know, like, if that happened to my son, I would go out and get that guy immediately. I would not wait for the police.
You have to take me in. If you can. Prig.
This is where the law stops. And I start.
Americans sleep better knowing he's out there killing villains, but these days he's not killing so many. In the latest film, Stallone buries only one baddie.
You are pathetic.
Another surprise is that after all these years of the bare Stallone torso, in this movie he keeps his shirt on.
I tell you.
Is this the beginning of something else? Are you
I'm
getting
sure
ready for a graceful old age? Or
I think I have to. I mean, there's something about me walking around in my underwear in every movie that tends to get a bit predictable. So I'm going to try to keep my clothes on a little bit more.